Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I'm Ross and I'm genuinely glad that you are here. Whether you're listening while trying to calm your mind before bed, while driving, walking, or simply getting through your day, this space exists for you. This podcast isn't going to be about perfection. It's going to be about honesty. It's about understanding anxiety instead of fearing it. And it's about learning tools and perspectives that can help you feel more in control of your life again. So, why have I started this podcast? Well, anxiety affects so many people, yet most people feel really alone in it. And I know that is probably one of the things that I get the most messages about. According to the World Health Organization, more than 301 million people worldwide live with an anxiety disorder. You heard me correctly. More than 301 million people worldwide. Now, that should be screaming in your head, you are not alone, because so many people suffer with it. Now, that doesn't even include those who struggle silently without ever speaking to a professional. That's how many people have gone through that surveys, etc., right? So many people think anxiety means they're broken, weak, or failing, but that simply isn't the truth. And anxiety is a human response, and it just becomes overwhelming when the system becomes overprotective. The purpose of this podcast is to give you clarity, support, and practical help. Not just fixes, not false promises, just real guidance grounded in science, lived experience, psychology, and compassion. And of course, some coaching along the way. Everything I share will connect back to the principles that promote freedom and balance, including awareness, acceptance, action, emotional regulation, the nervous system and understanding it, mindset work, confidence building, and behavioral tools. So it's not a pitch, this is just a foundation to your healing. So I suppose somewhere we have to start with this podcast, especially as it's episode one, is what is anxiety? Before sharing my story and how it's affected me, let's ground ourselves and really go into what anxiety actually is. So, the Oxford English Dictionary defines anxiety as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. So that is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. Another definition from the American Psychological Association describes anxiety as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes such as increased blood pressure. But those definitions don't capture the lived experience, right? Anyone who's got anxiety, if you're listening to this, they don't capture it, if we're honest. Yeah, they're almost there, but there's so much more to it. So here's a few metaphors for you just to think about. So anxiety can feel like a faulty car alarm going off every time a leaf touches the windscreen. Or how about this one? A metal detector that reacts to burnt toast, so you're at home, you cook some toast, it goes off, right? It's not going off to a fire. Your brain acting like an overprotective bodyguard, seeing every situation in your life as a threat, or standing on stage under a spotlight, even though you're completely alone in the kitchen. That is a bit more of what anxiety is, isn't it? It's something that feels like it can ruin your life. Now, the symptoms many people report with anxiety, I've got to obviously mention some of this on here because if you're here, we're all in this together, right? But it's really good to normalize the experience. And here's some common physical and mental symptoms that people report with anxiety. So, some of the physical ones to start with is things such as a racing heart, chest tightness, sweating. God, the sweating, what a nightmare. I had that really, really bad when I really used to suffer with it. The shaking, dizziness, shortness of breath, stomach pain, nausea, tingling in your hands or even your face, head pressure, cold or hot flushes, or even feeling like you might faint or lose control. And I suppose we got to go into some of the mental or emotional symptoms, right? So, what about overthinking, ruminating? That's got to be one of the worst, hasn't it? When you're laying there in bed and you're just thinking about everything that could happen in the future that hasn't yet happened, or things that have happened in the past. Catastrophic thinking, catastrophizing everything. I used to be the worst at this. I was so bad. What other ones are there? I'm just trying to think. So we got like feeling detached or like things aren't real, irritability, a fear of losing control, and I could go into that loads, right? Difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed, fear of future situations, constant scanning for danger. My God, like that was really bad for me too. Feeling trapped. There's so many symptoms, right? And the reason I've listed so many there is that I feel it's really important that you know it's all normal. Yeah, like all these symptoms you're having, they're all normal symptoms of anxiety. Every single symptom I've said there is your nervous system saying, I'm trying to protect you, right? It's trying to protect you, but it's just not doing it in quite the right way. As the metaphors were, yeah, like I was saying about the fire alarm going off for burnt toast, it's just going off when it doesn't need to, right? But it can be fixed. You can stop that because if that happened every day, you'd never have that, would you? You take it out, but you can't take out anxiety. It's part of everyone, and in fact, that's probably another point I should mention, right? Anxiety is essentially in everyone because it's part of your nervous system, right? But you could go 30, 40, 50 years of your life and never have it kind of causing you problems. And then all of a sudden, bang, anxiety's in and it's ruining your life. Because it can very quickly escalate to a stage where it's ruining your life, right? Likewise, you could have had periods, but then you've got over it, kind of forgot a bit, but then bang, something happens again and it's causing problems. And that's normally because you haven't really sussed out and worked out why it was there, what it was that was triggering it, and then done the work to get rid of that. Okay. But you can beat it, okay? No matter how bad your anxiety is. That's another reason why I've created this podcast. I want to help as many people as humanely possible. And I really, really hope that each episode of this podcast will go on to really give you that hope, that belief that things can get better for you. And they can. And I'm look, with the help I'm going to give you on here, with the help the guests are going to give you, and the stories, the Q&As, all the ideas I've got in this, which I'll go into in a bit later, that's all to help you get over anxiety. Anxiety is your survival response, right? And you often hear about it being fight or flight, right? So you'll hear lots of people go, oh, yeah, it's your fight or flight kicking in. But there are actually four responses realistically to this. You've got the fight and flight, which most people go on about. You've got freeze, which is where you can just freeze and just not know what to do. And there is a fourth one that people very, very rarely mention, which is fawn. And that is essentially where you're people pleasing, avoiding conflict just to feel safe. And that can people can really underestimate that. That can have massive implications on your life because people can essentially be taking advantage of you. You're just doing whatever you can because you feel it's a safer way. And that might not necessarily be you're consciously thinking it. It's just what's happening with your nervous system. Yeah. So that's one to bear in mind. Freezing can feel like you're mentally shut down, unable to think or act. And all of this that I'm talking about, these are automatic. Yeah. So you don't choose them. That's not you deciding to do it. It's your nervous system choosing them based on what it thinks is safest. What it thinks is safest. And now you might be thinking, hang on a minute, if that just happens instantly, then how am I ever meant to beat it? And this is going to be one of my first takeaways I want to share with you because this is something that really, really changed my life. And I'll go into my story a bit later, but this is one of the things that when I learnt it, it really changed how I look at situations and gave me that belief in that actually, if I look at things differently, I will be able to change things. So this was personally like probably one of my biggest breakthroughs, I'd say, because it was just a really profound moment. And that's to do with the pattern of essentially it's like a thoughts, feelings, actions, results loop. So it's like a pattern, it goes round in a circle, right? And basically, the pattern goes like this. Essentially, your thoughts will influence your feelings influence actions, so the actions you take, and the actions you take will influence your results. And then, of course, your results reinforce the feelings and beliefs. So your results are going to affect your thoughts you're having. So, of course, if you're not doing anything, okay, so if we go to the action stage, for example, if you're not doing anything, you're putting in no effort to get over your anxiety, or you just don't feel you're able to, so you're not going out, you're staying inside, doing that is not going to get you the results of getting over it, right? And then because you're avoiding your anxiety, that's going to affect your thoughts because you're thinking you can't do things now because you have to avoid it. And that's going to change how you feel about anxiety and how you feel about the world and how everything's scary. And that's also going to then affect the actions you take. So most people, when they start trying to change anxiety, you quite often hear people go, "Oh yeah, you just got to be positive or positive thinking." Like that's not the way to do it. Okay, most people try to change it at the thoughts first, but obviously your thoughts, as I was saying, without trying to click too many times in this podcast, yeah, they're instant. Yeah, your thoughts just happen. Okay, but they're off of without going too into it. They're based on everything else, right? But with anxiety, the thoughts are that fast and automatic. They're wired into this survival. And trying to change thoughts first is like trying to stop a moving train with your bare hands. It is not going to happen. Obviously, unless you're hitting the gym all the time, you're absolute tank or something. But yeah, obviously, it's still not going to happen, right? So you can't change your feelings first either because they're the response, aren't they? Yes, you can't just decide you're going to change your thoughts because they affect your feelings. You can't just decide you're going to, oh, I'm just going to feel better. Yeah. It needs more convincing, doesn't it? So the first point of influence is actions. It's the small, consistent, empowered actions that change your outcomes. And them outcomes, so the results and what you get in life, will change your beliefs. And your beliefs will change your feelings. And eventually, those thoughts will begin to shift automatically. So you'll be having better thoughts about everything. You can, this, I know this is about anxiety, but this can literally change every part of your life. So let's just go through this one more time to make sure you got it stuck in there. So your thoughts affect your feelings. Your feelings affect the actions you take, and the actions you take affect the results. And of course, the results will compound and will affect your thoughts. That's that cycle. Yeah. You can absolutely, like, just being made aware of that should make you start to question things. Start to question things to actually, don't just because you feel something or think it doesn't make it a fact. Yeah. This is a real point I'd like to, go on there. So that first point about action, those small, consistent actions is so important. So important. And that was like a really big moment for me and became like a powerful guiding force in my own personal healing journey, right? And then later, massively in my coaching. Okay. I might give you now a little bit of a story about my anxiety. And I don't want to make this first podcast, though, just about me. Like, I really want people to get as much out of this as possible, but I suppose it is going to help you relate. So I'm going to go into this just a bit. So my anxiety has essentially been with me since a very young age. Okay. Very shy and kind of reserved and really worried about people looking at me and stuff like that. But at times I would try and fight that by being like, actually, no, I want to try and get in the spotlight and etc. But I didn't really, there was no method or anything around that. And as I kind of grew up, it was becoming more and more difficult. But throughout childhood, I had lots of friends and stuff, right? So that everything felt more doable because I didn't want to let people down. Like I was a bit of a people pleaser, but at the same time, I wanted to see these people. So I didn't want to let them down. So I had a real reason to push myself past that anxiety and get out there and help people, right? But like most people, as you move on through life, as you get a bit older, a lot of those friendships that you all move away, and then you become a bit more secluded, I suppose. And then things can easily become too much for you. and you can really struggle to worry about everything and anything. And you do a lot of comparison. Like I used to compare myself to everyone and just think everyone is better than me. But I know that's not the case, okay, anymore. Like I had such a low opinion of myself, right from my early 20s was probably the worst. And I really kind of struggled with that. But I would try and fight it. Yeah, but I was never really present in it. I was trying to fight it. And then going through, so basically to give you a bit of an idea on my past and what things I've done. So I ended up joining the police and decided that'd be a good way to make myself more confident, etc. And in many ways it did work. I did become more confident, but in that kind of career, you end up exposed to lots and lots of trauma, lots of really kind of heartbreaking situations, because essentially you're dealing with people who are having the worst day of their life most of the time, yeah. Um, and there's obviously like a vicarious way that still affects you. It's secondary trauma. And over time, that really affected me. It ended up really changing my mindset, making things really difficult for me, and I lost a lot of belief in myself and come up with all these bad thoughts about myself, etc., and ended up becoming really anxious about even being in work, etc. And that eventually, realistically, that with other things that went on to do with the career and the traumas of things I went to, essentially ruined my marriage. I ended up getting divorced. And that was super difficult. I had two really young kids, so it was really, really tough. And it took me years to even get to any remote kind of level. And my anxiety basically made me really, really depressed. Okay. And in amongst that, it was so dark. It was so difficult to want to do anything. And just the thought of like trying to go out and do things felt too much, but I would try and do the odd things with friends and that just to keep me going. And in a way, I was lucky that I always had some small group of friends kind of during this period. Like I was in a band, for example, so I had a reason to keep going out, but it was difficult. Like everything felt really hard. And then towards the latter part, when within the career that I was doing, there become a point where I'd been to so many like really tragic things that had happened to people. I had one day where basically I'd woke up and it was just like, like the derealization, everything like that. Like I just could not even bear the thought of going in. Like I just didn't know how I'd do it, and I had like a real breakdown, essentially, a real bad panic attack. I just did not know what on earth I was going to do, and at the time, right, and you hopefully some of you will be able to relate to this, like because of what I've done and achieved in my life, like I've always been in a bit of denial about anxiety, really. Like I would deny it's anxiety because I felt like I'm the sort of person I can't have that because I have to help other people and do this stuff. But once I had that realization, I was like, I am human and it's normal and it's okay to feel that way. That was when I started to get that first change. But going throughout this, like without go, as I said, I don't want to go into me too much at this point. I can always do a later podcast on it if people are like really interested. But essentially, it can easily ruin your life. As I was saying, like mine essentially led to me getting divorced and stuff like that, like massive implications for your life. And there's lots of things even prior to that and later, etc. But it can have massive implications on your life. It can make you change your job, your partner, where you live. Like, it can make you just become a recluse and not go anywhere, not do anything. Obviously, agoraphobia. There's so many ways it can affect you. It can stop you going to do your dreams and go and go around the world and travel and stuff like that. Like, there is no way. Like, I would have loved to have done like traveling and gone to all these amazing places around the world, but there was no way I would have been able to do it with my anxiety, right? But when I started kind of getting on top of things and I become a coach, like learning to shift my mindset and change how I deal with things. And for example, the loop I was just telling you about with your thoughts and feelings, etc., like those kind of mindset shifts was what then inspired me to go, well, hang on a minute, this gives a real opportunity to start beating my anxiety and learning to control it. And now, like, my life is entirely different. Like, there is no way I would let anxiety control me anymore. Like I've completely learned how to control that. And I'd never say you're never anxiety free. Like someone said, oh yeah, I will get rid of your anxiety forever. Like we can't. It's part of your nervous system. Yeah, it's like trying to protect you. But the difference is now mine's wired completely correctly. Yeah. And by being wired correctly, right? Like you want your nervous system to do things. If you were to step out in front of a car, for example, you want it to suddenly make you pull back. And that you can't do that without going too technical into this. You wouldn't be able to do that with your rational thinking cortex front of your brain because that would be like, oh no, there's a car coming. I need to step back. And then by that point, you've already been run over, right? Whereas the other one would just go, dun, you're on it. So that's just, yeah, without going too far down that side, like there is a purpose to it. All right. So that gives you a little bit about me. Obviously, if you're watching this and or listening to it, wherever you are, if you want to know more about my story, you can obviously comment or come on my socials and stuff and tell me, and I can always do more of that another time. But I want to make this first podcast, especially though, like about what it's going to be, what you're going to get out of it, right? So it just gives you a little bit of an idea about anxiety and where we are. But each episode is going to be all about getting you more and more relief from your anxiety and to a stage where hopefully you're completely in control of it. I want to give you a quote now that was again like, and now don't get me wrong, like I don't think most quotes have the power to completely change your life, but sometimes they're really profound. And this was one that really did change how I looked at the world. Like really, really changed how I looked at the world. And it was by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it was this: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So I'll say that again. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Now, what that is essentially getting at is perception is everything, right? And I'm going to give an example which hopefully people can relate to here. Like, often in some jobs you will see that lots of people will whinge and complain about the current state of the job and how it's going wrong and it doesn't work, etc., and they hate it and stuff like this and they want to do something else. But actually you can completely and utterly look at that in a different way, completely and utterly, right? No matter how bad it is, because there was a time where you really wanted that job and you would have probably been saying to yourself, you'll do anything to get that job and you'll be happy once you get that job. But we very quickly forget about all these promises we make ourselves because we grow as a person and we kind of move on and then want more. But you don't want to be stuck in a loop where you just always want more, right? But you can also go far deeper than that. Like, how lucky are you that you've actually got a job? Because lots of people don't. How lucky are you that you're well enough to be able to work? How lucky are you that you have your senses, your sight, smell, like those things that can have a massive impact if you're trying to get work. But often we don't look at it that way. And that was another point for me is like when I started really thinking and exploring kind of that quote and what it could mean for me, like that led me down the path of gratitude quite a bit. And I have like a routine I do in the mornings to do that. And that is like massively life changing to actually really show gratitude. And by that, I mean, like, when, if someone said to you, like, write down 5 things you're grateful for, right? Most people will start going, like, oh, I'm grateful for my partner, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my car. Like, okay, yeah, really surface level. Let's go deeper, right? Because the more you get into it, like it will expand your mind. You want to have a growth mindset. You want to really be open to challenging the way you've always been. Because let's be honest, if you're here and you listen to this, you're probably not completely happy with everything in your life right now, right? So really try and take some of these things on board to help open your mind to the possibilities. Because realistically, it's a case of, well, if we look at this, for example, to change how we look at gratitude, well, how about how lucky am I that if I want some water, I live in a house and I can just get running water. I don't have to travel miles to go and get some fresh, safe drinking water. How about how lucky am I that I've actually got the mind that I can actually think? Yeah, I haven't got some disability that I can't do that. I can walk. I've got my eyesight. These are things that we massively overlook, but actually, how lucky are you to have that? Because not everyone does, right? I mean, there's obviously so much more that can go into that, but just to give you a bit of an idea with that quote. Like that was another big point for me. I'm going to give you some more kind of metaphors here about anxiety because it really helps people relate to it. But I was thinking about this the other day, how sometimes it's like you're driving, but you've got one foot on the accelerator and the other's on the brake. So it's like you're trying to do things, but actually you just can't seem to do it because it feels like something's holding you back. Or it feels like the world's really loud, but your kind of capacity and what you can do just feels tiny, like you can't get past that. But the good news is no matter how long you've had your anxiety, no matter how bad it's got, I absolutely promise you, you can get over it. And throughout this podcast and the episodes coming in the future, I'm going to give you as much as humanely possible to help you do that. I've basically dedicated my life to working with people who suffer with anxiety. Okay. So I'm an anxiety coach. That is what I do. And I absolutely get so much out of helping people. Like that's my life purpose to help as many people as humanely possible overcome anxiety. And it's essentially become my mission. I've spent many, many years studying anxiety, learning how to coach, learning loads of different skills such as neurolinguistic programming. There's so much that can be done to help you get over your anxiety, right? Like there's so many tools that you can use. But I'm not going to go into all that now because there's so much we can give in all the future podcasts. But I just want you to know, like, this is a safe space for you. And this is going to hopefully give you real value into getting over it and not letting it control your life and getting your life back. I'm going to give you one little takeaway actually now that you can start doing as a small win against your anxiety, right? And I say small win, like this can be really big, and this alone for some people is probably just going to annihilate their anxiety, right? But this just gives you one really quick, practical way that you can do anywhere, right, to get over your anxiety. And this is essentially what's called box breathing. Okay. And I won't go too much into kind of what this does, but essentially it regulates your body, it regulates that nervous system and calms you down. Okay. So what you would do is you would breathe in for 4 seconds, you then hold it for 4 seconds, and you exhale for 4 seconds, right? So breathe in for four, hold for four, breathe out for four. And you do that 4 to 6 times, right? And what you have to make sure when you do this, it can't be like breathe in, one, two, three, four, hold, one, two, three. It's got to be like one, two, three, four, one, two, three, four. So just don't rush it. Yes, it's not like a one, two, three, four. Don't rush it. Okay. And that will start to calm you down. And to help with your kind of mindset, instead of thinking about, oh, actually, I can feel my heart's going quicker or anything like that, try and tell yourself, I'm safe. My body is reacting, not warning me. Okay. It's just reacting because all them symptoms, everything you feel is essentially adrenaline in your body. And just to give you a bit of an idea here, when else do you get adrenaline in your body? When you're excited. Yeah, when you're excited. So that's another thing to think, right? We can change the way you look at this, but we just need to regulate how that's dealt with. But there's loads we can do and that we are going to do in future podcasts. So not every podcast will necessarily be the exact same setup as this one. This is number one, right? But in the future ones, there are guests, there's going to be different tools, stories, there'll be Q&A episodes, there'll be ones where we delve into the science a bit, some guidance, and it's going to be real conversations with real people because I strongly believe that when you hear these conversations with other people that have genuinely really gone through it with anxiety and got over it, it is massively empowering to you. And that's what I hope to achieve through the podcast. So thank you for taking the time to listen to episode 1 of the Anxiety Relief podcast. I really cannot thank you enough for taking the time to listen to this. And I just ask that if you have listened to it and you found it helpful or know someone that you believe this podcast will start getting them on that journey to help them out, please, please, please share it with people. Share it with that person and let others know about it because it will help the podcast grow. And the better the podcast gets, with the more views it has, the more time and effort I can put into it to get it out to as many people as possible. So I want to end with this. If you're listening to this, thank you. But most importantly, I genuinely want you to know you are not broken. You're not behind where you're meant to be. You are not alone. You're learning and you're healing. I believe in every single one of you. You've got this. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling a little more calm, confident, and in control. Remember, small steps every day can lead to a big transformation in your life. If you found this episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who you think might benefit. For more tools and resources, head over to my website at www.rossrolf.com. And don't forget to join the Anxiety Relief Hub on Facebook, which is a supportive community where you can connect, share, and grow. Until next time.